Hello, this afternoon we're going to tackle infiltration calculations. If you have just completed the zoning diagram and ventilation diagram for the project, then you have all the data you need to commence the infiltration diagrams. You go to the seed mechanical page in Sites and you go to a particular page called Tools and Samples, and there you will find a file called Seed Infiltration Projects. I'm going to ask you to download it specifically from this page. When you hit View, it'll give you the option to download, and when you download, I'm sorry, I've done something wrong there, but when you download, it will actually give you the opportunity to pick up the very latest diagram or spreadsheet that we've used. When you open that spreadsheet, it will look like this one here, and you'll be familiar that on the left hand side there is one calculation and on the right hand side there is another calculation. The spreadsheet is set up that if you keep your margins correct, when you hit save and print, it should be able to go into one page per calculation. You enter in the data, the name of the project, what floor, but most importantly I'd ask you to look at what type of floor it is. And there are really only two or three types of floors. There is a custom floor, an entry floor, a floor where there's plant, which is not an entry floor, or a sealed floor. And you'll come down and do the infiltration page, and you'll have these values. So these are all the default values. And from the ventilation and zoning diagram, you'll enter in your zones. Now, in this instance, we have two entries for west and two entries for east, and that is because those two zones also have openable doors. So for the facade, which is stick glazing in north, you just put stick glazing, but for west you have both the fixed stick glazing as well as openable doors. So you go and select which one you want from your pull down menu, and you use the value that you come up with. When we calculate the area of the facade, I don't want you just to type the number in. I want you to type out the way that it was calculated. So in this instance, it was a 3.5 metre high facade floor to floor, and it was 25 metres long. When we come to the west, it was 3.5 metres floor to floor, 45 metres long, and then you've deducted the area for the openable doors. So I've actually gone and I've gone and made a real hash of that. Okay, so that gives us a very correct area of the facade. It gives us a leakage rate for the facade, and it tells me the total amount that facade will leak, which in this instance is 1860 for an entry floor. Down here we enter the volume, so that's written as the floor area by the height. And again, I want you just to calculate the floor area very explicitly so that we can see how it is done. 4 metre zone depth by 25 metres long by a height of 3.5 metres floor to floor. And so we have an accurate volume for each of those zones. Note that we just do west once, and then we select an entry floor or any of those other values. Now, the default for entry floor is actually 1, but in this specific instance we know that they've added some air curtains, some way of minimising the amount of infiltration coming in. So we have applied an air change rate that is less than that, and if you ever need to edit it, you edit it up here in this box. And of course that calculates, using the air change method, an infiltration rate of 1568 litres. Down here we calculate both the exposure rate as well as the air change rate, and we come up with the worst case for each assumption. Now in this case the doors have been added, and you'll find that will make the assumption of 2768 is our correct infiltration rate for this project, for this entry floor on the ground. Over here on the right hand side we have the calculations for levels 2 to 20, which is a mid-rise floor, and basically we know there are some things about this floor in particular. Firstly, it has all of the zones, but you don't need to add zone entries for the openable doors. Secondly, in this part of the building it's all curtain wall, which is to say that the glass hangs as a very tight hermetic shield around the whole building like a curtain. You calculate the area of the facade, and again I want you to notice it's the height by the length of the facade, and everyone can see how you did that calculation. And then you end up basically calculating an amount that seems to be 370 litres per floor. Using the air change method, which is sometimes required by the brief, you again calculate the volume, which is the depth of the zone by the length of the zone by the height of the zone. And everybody can see or follow what you've done. Now, it might be that the brief says apply all of that except for the centre zones. In that case, you would change your sealed floor to custom, and you go up here to custom and enter 0, and therefore there is no infiltration applied to the centre zone. And that has an infiltration rate of just under 500 litres. Again, it calculates the air change rate and the exposure rate, and it ends up with a specified airflow which you will put into your air quantity calculations of 490 litres per second. Now when you finish that, you go and save the project, and you save it as a PDF. You just save that spreadsheet and convert that to a PDF, and you enter a project name. So let's call it project name, and when that happens it generates this particular PDF. So one page for the first calculation, one page for the second calculation, and of course a superfluous page. So you need to delete the last page so that you just have the 2 pages being used, and that's what you will save to the project. This ends the section on infiltration calculations. Thank you very much.